Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and this is part 2 of my bookshelf reorganization. Part 1 focused on my fiction collection, and part 2 is going to be on my nonfiction collection. After I go through all of my nonfiction books, I'm also going to be talking about the books that I decided to keep that were maybes from both part 1 and part 2. And then I'll show you how my bookshelves looked after I reorganized after the unhaul. But before we get into my nonfiction shelves, I'm going to show you around my academic journal articles that I have printed out, as well as how I use my coffee table for book storage space. These are all articles and stuff that I had for grad school that I printed off, and I kept them. We've got kind of some general stuff, gender, race, intersectionality, literary criticism, which was undergrad. The rest were from graduate school. A lot of books, or a lot of articles on trans stuff, because that was one of my main focuses. And then LGBT stuff in general. Then we have general sociology, scales, and other topics for classes. Then we have my table, which is kind of a part of my bookshelves. We have books that I am currently reading or am going to be reading very soon, as well as my kind of reading journal, stuff like that. Underneath, we actually have some books. We have some photo books. We have some music books. We have this thing that I use. We have some notebooks back there, as well as some empty subscription boxes. This is a giant stack of pride flags. Why don't we look at them? Why not? So, first one, we have this, which I wrote on. I got the idea for this in probably 2016, but I don't think that I did it until a little while later. But this one half of the pride flag has the victims of the Pulse shooting on them. And then the other side has the victims of the upstairs lounge fire, which was an arson that happened in Louisiana in 1973. When the Pulse shooting happened that summer, I was very much invested in looking at victims of hate crimes. Before the shooting happened, I was working on a project for Trans Day of Remembrance and collecting as many names as possible. Over the course of the year, I cross-checked a ton of different lists and ended up with over 1,000 people. While I was doing that, I was also looking at other hate crimes, because when I originally started, I thought, you know, maybe it would be good to have lists of, like, all of the LGBT hate crimes, because we want to remember people. And needless to say, that proved to be way too much for one person to do, but I did find out about the upstairs lounge fire, and it wasn't something that a lot of people had heard about. So this was very much kind of like a cathartic, like, grieving project, and I ended up using it in a couple of things with the LGBT group that I was with. This was at a few events. And then we have some that are just regular kind of pride flags. We have this pansexual flag. I used to identify as pansexual. I don't anymore, but I still have the flag because it used to hang up. We also have a bisexual flag, which I've had a couple of roommates who are bi, so we used to hang that up. Then the next couple are actually blankets. I have a very talented friend, and he made one of these as gifts for me, and then one of them for somebody else who ended up downsizing, and now I had both of them. So this, I'm not going to display the whole thing because it takes up room, but this is a demisexual flag. I used to identify as demi and pan. Now I'm honestly not sure, because figuring out the whole compulsory heterosexuality thing, I'm not really sure where I lay on the ace spectrum. I'm going to be figuring that shit out. But, yeah, that's the one blanket, and then the other blanket looks like the pan flag. Oh, and then we actually have one more because it fell behind. This is my genderqueer flag. It used to hang where my pride flag is now, but I got the pride flag and was excited, so I'll figure out where to hang this at some point. I still haven't decorated my apartment all the way. Alright, next we have my nonfiction, which are these two shelves. I'll have to move my chair. And then the smaller one. So to start off with, I'm going to talk about my knickknacks. Obviously, I have a giant pride flag. And then I have this poster, which I actually got at the first TDOR event that I went to. This, which I got at Pride. I think last year. This person I'd seen at a number of different prides. That's Ben Griffith, if anyone is interested. But he is, I feel like I've seen this person at so many different pride events around, so I went ahead and bought some of his art. It's really pretty. I always find myself at his booth, so I went ahead and bought some. We got a postcard from a friend in LA. We've got chopsticks, which I was going to send back to her because she left these here, but she said to keep them, so they'll go in my kitchen. We've got my thesis, because I need to have that sitting out. And then we have a couple of pins that I just need to put back on my backpack. But Audre Lorde is here. She's gay, so that's good. Next we have some CDs. We've got some Julian Baker, some Andrea Gibson, some Ryan Casada. We've got this newspaper, which this is a school newspaper that my LGBT group was in. We've got this, which was actually a bag from a used bookshop from when I went to San Francisco. And then this, which this is a Life magazine from 1971. It's actually talks about gay liberation. The reason that I have this is because it was featured in When We Rise, which was a docudrama that was loosely based off of Cleve Jones' memoir. And the girl that I was dating at the time found this. So that's where it came from. Now we can actually get onto some books, which is what y'all came here for. I honestly don't think I'm going to be unhauling very much over here. Certainly not with my LGBT books, just because this is like my area. It's my area of study. It's my, generally speaking, area of interest. This top shelf is mostly TBR. We've got my HIV and AIDS TBR in no particular order. Then we have my LGBT history TBR in rainbow order. Then we have some other books that I haven't read. A few are memoir. And then we've got one that's gender studies. I should probably separate those further, but I just haven't. Then we have more LGBT books that I haven't read, again, in rainbow order. I've read pieces of some of them, like I've read pieces of Open Girl, and a couple of other ones, but I'm excited to get to these. Then we have LGBT books that I have read, starting with the ABCs of LGBT, on downward, and I'm not getting rid of any of those. Then we have some textbook type things and coffee table type things. I've read through most of Pride. I've like gone through the quilt. That's not something that I'm gonna sit and read all of in one sitting, because that would just be really overwhelming and sad. But I have read Sexualities in Education, most of Sex Matters. I actually use this for a class, and I haven't read all of this, but I do plan on looking at some of it. Hello, Remy. She's gonna be in the way now. She's a pretend. Okay, so we have writing books, basically, for the majority of this. We have a baby name book, which I did not use for babies, I used for characters. Now, with some of this, I actually might unhaul some of these things. So this was a textbook, and it was, like, talking about academic writing, and, like, I think I've got the hang of that, and if I'm gonna reference anything like this, it's gonna be within my, like, specific place of study. So we're gonna unhaul that. Then we have a number of, like, guide to writing. We've got St. Martin's, and then, ooh, the student writer, which I actually both found either for free or super cheap. But, like, am I ever gonna read anything? Do I need to read any of these? Like, no, not really. Yes, hello. We have Stephen King's On Writing, which I may keep. This is like a bunch of writing prompts. This is an out-of-date MLA pocket-style book, which, do I really need this? The internet exists, and I don't really use MLA. I use ASA. Then we have some books on character, which I may keep. Grammar book, another baby name book. Do I really need two when the internet exists? Then we have this, which I think was my, like, English 1010 textbook. Do I need my English 1010 textbook? No. Got Shrunk and White, which I guess I'll keep just in case. We've got a creative writing kind of deal. We'll keep that. We'll keep, this is a more recent ASA. I'll actually use that. Then we've got All of these are from grad school, and I'm going to be keeping these because the chances of me using them are a lot higher than the other ones that I've already gotten rid of. God knows I'll need help with stats. And then we have some history textbooks, which those undergrad, but I'll still keep them just in case, unless some of them are worth a lot, which I kind of doubt. Then we have a couple of books on animals. I was really obsessed with animals when I was little, like super obsessed, which is one of the reasons I really got into the Guardians of Ga'Hoole. And this Yorkie book is one that my grandma got me from a garage sale, and I'm gonna keep it. And then this one just sounds neat, so we keep that as well. So now we can move on to the larger bookshelf. Starting at the top, we've got decorations. We've got this mummy friend that one of my friends gave me, along with a hairpin that I actually wore at her wedding. We've got Pizza John that I have yet to color because I get anxious sometimes when I have to put things down permanently. Same goes for stickers, actually. Then we have some Doctor Who. And we have a protest sign. Diverse families are beautiful. And then 7,500 kids in foster care and 350 kids available for adoption in Tennessee. I had to make this because in 2020, the first bill that Tennessee decided to pass was one saying that adoption agencies can discriminate for religious or moral reasons. So, they didn't explicitly say, you know, you don't have to adopt LGBT people, but they did say you can choose not to adopt to certain people, which we know translates to LGBT people a lot of the times, but it has the additionally fun, and by fun I mean fucked up, addition of it could also turn into discriminating against single parents, discriminating against parents of different religions. So if somebody wants to help me fund my way out of the South, you know, that'd be great. But first we have Sociology Shelf, starting with some journals. Also got some journals over here. We've got Intro to Sociology. We've got some theory. This should maybe be somewhere else, but that's Reader on Privilege. We've got some stuff on power and class. This is another 1010 book that should probably be over there. But general social problems, stuff relating to class. So we've got Behind the Beautiful Forevers, that's about India. We've got stuff on labor markets, housing. This is also specifically about classism. It was interesting. It wasn't on classism, but it was on kind of poor white people in certain areas. We read it in the context with a bunch of other stuff in my race class, so I would definitely not maybe read it by itself because there's a lot to kind of unpack. Then we've got, this is about the nonviolent movement. I didn't really know where else to put it, so it's there. We've got some climate stuff. We've got some stuff on technology and a variety of other things. Am I going to unhaul any of this? So this one I'm not super sure about. I got this probably for free from a random box. And it seems interesting. I'm probably going to unhaul this book because I have books that look into the issues that this probably hits on and more thoroughly, just because this is kind of like an general sort of thing. So we're gonna get rid of this. See, I nearly unhauled these last time. These I also got for free because people in one of the buildings were getting rid of their stuff. This one I'm probably gonna put in the maybe. I'm gonna research it. There's probably a better book for this. So, federal judicial system. This is old and the internet exists. So, next, we go into some TBR territory. So this stuff kind of looks at class, which I haven't put these officially on a list, but I do want to look more at those. And then we've got my kind of leftist TBR, which I only have 2 physical books, but I have so many post-it notes, so many, because I have ebooks. Some of them that fell behind the penguin. There we go. After that, we have some feminist study stuff. Again, this is all TBR, so I'm probably not going to get rid of it. Then we've got some general kind of stuff on race that's not quite history. Then we have history, more history of people of color. We've got my prison TBR, which I still need to make post-its for, the ebooks. Then we get into just general books. Now, it starts out with gender studies. I have read some of these. Black Feminist Thought, literally everybody should read, I think. I've read I Am Malala, Promises I Can Keep, I read for a class. I've read the Vagina Monologues. I'm interested in reading most of these, so I don't think I'm going to get rid of them. Then that brings us to the second part of all of this. We've got some stuff that's classic. We've got some that's just memoir. I've read this, which I might as well keep. I think that I do have technically copies of other stuff in other anthologies, but we'll keep it. This I should probably read. It's Judith Lorber. This, I'm pretty sure, is on like radical feminism, which will be interesting to read. I'm not certain how it's all going to pan out. Some radical feminist stuff is interesting and some of it is turfy, so we'll see how that goes. This I haven't opened yet, but it's a textbook on the family, which is neat. So after that, I have some books on race. I have 2 copies of The Good Immigrant because my dad works at a place that gives him copies of books sometimes, and so I ended up with 2 copies. So this I will unhaul, I suppose. There's no sense in having 2. I've read some of a few of these. I've read, I think, everything after, you know, like American Apartheid, White by Law, all of these I've read for various reasons. Definitely keeping all of them. American Apartheid is really interesting. It is written by white people, just as a, you know, a note, since it is talking about race, but it really goes into just how segregated people are or were, and it kind of goes into why segregation impacted Black people as much as it did. And it goes in and talks about the different sorts of ghettos that there were, because we associate ghettos with Black people, but there were different ghettos for different sorts of immigrant groups as well, but they were never as highly segregated. It's really fascinating, and I think gives a lot of perspective. It is sort of number heavy, but there's a lot of good stuff in it. So going down to the bottom shelf, we have a couple that technically go in the section that I just showed you. But then after that, we have memoirs that are more focused on disability and mental health. When I was talking about that, poetry book earlier about addiction, this was the memoir that I was talking about that I really enjoyed. Tweak. Beautiful Boy is by his dad, so you kind of get both of those perspectives. Definitely not unhauling those. I think I'm gonna look more at reviews and stuff about the short bus and put it in a maybe. I was supposed to read this for class, and I did read pieces of it for the class. But I just kind of want to check it out and see what actual disabled people thought of it. The person who wrote it had a learning disability, but I know he talks about a lot of different things other than that. So then we have kind of some general memoir sort of things that I'll probably keep, even if I'm not really sure when I'll read some of them. Oops. This is another one that I want to find some own voices reviews on, so I may put this in my maybe pile. I originally bought this because it sounded interesting. It's about Native Americans, but I'm pretty sure it was written by somebody who is not Native American, so I'm gonna look stuff up about that. This I should probably just read because it's pretty short. My grandparents got me this on a trip, so that's cute. And then this I actually taught a class with, a middle school class. So then we get into some historical books. We've got kind of children in history. We've got a thing on Shakespeare, which I have not read, but I still want to read. I've read Diary of Anne Frank. I've read some of these, like Troublemaker I read for class, The Worst Hard Time, Devil in the White City. So far as unhauling any of this goes, I'm probably going to unhaul this It is Jeannie, the life of Lady Randolph Churchill. I'm not interested in Churchill in general, really. I think I got this because it was super inexpensive or possibly free. So, goodbye. But other than that, I think I'm going to keep everything else. And then that brings us to this little shelf. We've got some knickknacks up top. We've got a flower crown with spy colors. We've got Wonder Woman. We've got I Know I Whined, But I Did It cup with a pansexual flag. I should probably throw this wine bottle away. Probably don't need to decorate with wine bottles. A cup, D&D dice. We have some books up top. We have a Bible that lives up here. We have Remy's meds because she has seizures and a thyroid problem. We've got some cookbooks, so vegan substitutions, that's important. And then a book on like food that heals. If y'all see boxes in the background, please ignore those. The rest of my house is a mess. So then this shelf is kind of religious books. This first section is stuff that I want to read more immediately. Some of it's history, so we've got history of like people of color in the church. We've got some various people who are activists, who are spiritual, and then on to some theology. I'm really interested in liberation theology and queer theology. I do plan on putting a video about kind of these books at some point as sort of like a TBR. Then we've got the Bible is Lit, Quran, Bhagavad Gita. Now, with the next section of books, I'm not super sure about all of them. The problem with some Christian literature is that there's a chance for like homophobia and stuff like that, and I'm not really interested in that. Like I said, liberation theology, queer theology. This seems pretty straightforward. It's probably one that I'm going to look at. It just looks like maybe women in the Bible, which might go well with the feminist theology stuff that I had. Oh, this one should actually be in the other pile, I think. Christian Vision for Justice, Peace, and Healing sounds like liberation theology-ish. This is something that my grandma gave me that I should probably look at. This is a book that I got for free when I visited a mosque, so that's cool. This is something that I read forever ago. This I'm probably going to look at because I don't actually know if it's going to be much of any help. This is another one that I read when I was in like middle school or high school. I don't really know if I'll use it very much. This is a book that my dad actually helped design. He used a handprint project that I made when I was little to do that. This was a gift. This was free, I think. I probably don't need this necessarily. And this I think I'm going to look stuff up about because it says the gospel according to Jesus, but is it really? Sometimes folks say that and it's just not. So, we've got a prayer journal that I have not used, but maybe I will someday. This book is interesting. It looks like some end of days theology, which I am absolutely not about, but it looks like it might be interesting or maybe amusing to read. Is that bad? It's just interesting to see why people think certain things. So there's that. We've got a journal I'm gonna keep. We've got this journal. This is a workbook that was a gift. My ex bought it for me after we broke up. We dated for almost a decade, and then after we broke up, he went to therapy. But, this is like supposed to be guided by religion and whatnot, and apparently he put a flyer for the place in there as well. But there's some transphobia in here, and honestly, I don't think that it's going to be as helpful to me as other workbooks would be, and certainly not as helpful religiously as some of these other books would be. So we're gonna get rid of that one. Then we have this bottom shelf, which we start out with some philosophy. These are philosophy books that I bought for class. Am I gonna reread Nietzsche? Am I gonna reread... Oh, this actually sounds kind of interesting. Depending... am I gonna actually read Nietzsche? Probably not. I have so much other stuff that I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna reread that. I'm not going to reread Hume or Plato's Meno. I might keep this just in case if I get into philosophy for some reason in a different way than I already am. Then we have some Enneagram books. I'm super into the Enneagram. I really enjoyed The Road Back to You. And then I'm in the middle of, I need to look through this more. I might actually put this on my table so that I can read it. So then we have some other books. This one I got for free. Somebody was getting rid of it. It looks like something that would be useful. We've got some Brene Brown because she's popular. I plan on reading that at some point. Creators of To Write Love on Your Arms, on Her Arms. And we have a few other books on like habits and stuff like that. And then we've got some meditation and mindfulness stuff. This book I started to read and should probably finish. And this is my favorite book on this shelf. You and Your Gender Identity by Dara Hoffman Fox. This really helped me. I actually have a whole notebook where I have all of my stuff from when I was going through it the first time. I plan on going through it again because they are actually putting up and reading on their YouTube channel a lot of different things from this, so I'll probably link that down below. But this is a book on gender identity by someone who's non-binary. There's a lot of stuff about figuring out your gender, but also kind of other tools that are cool. So if you're trans, non-binary, questioning at any point, definitely read this. Even if you're cis, this would actually probably be good to really think complexly about your gender with. Then we have the Queer and Transgender Resilience Workbook, which I started. This is another book that's written by a non-binary person, so that's super cool. Things started to get a little bit difficult just because it's kind of got into some areas that were like hard questions to ask yourself. So I need to get back into that. I just got scared. And after that we have Chicken Soup for the Soul. I used to read these in like middle school, but am I ever going to read them again? The answer's probably no, so I'm probably going to get rid of those. And then we have GRE prep books, which if I end up doing my doctorate, I'm going to have to retake this, and just, I'm not looking forward to it. But yeah. Alright, so here are all of the books that I ended up unhauling. And then these two stacks are the maybes. So I'm gonna look some stuff up about this and then get back to y'all, see what I'm keeping and see what's going away. Alright, so I have gone through my maybes and I have chosen what to toss and what to not. I ended up unhauling most of them, so I'll go through the ones that I'm deciding to keep. First, we have I Don't Want to Be Crazy by Samantha Schultz. I have read this book, and I remember liking it when I read it forever ago, but I don't remember anything about it. This is a book told in verse. I figure I could read it at some point and see if I like it, and if I read it and it's terrible, I'll just unhaul it then. Then I decided to keep Haunted America and the Amityville Horror on the off chance that I get some kind of itch for something supernatural. I don't think that it's like super likely, but then again, I kept all of like my Anne Rice and stuff like that, and I feel like if I'm keeping those, I might as well keep these as well. There could be a change because there was a while when I was interested in more like spooky stuff, so it might come back around. I also figure I might as well keep Water for Elephants. I heard from a couple of people that they liked it, so I will give it a try eventually. Don't like wait on that necessarily, but I'm not gonna toss it. And then I also decided to keep the Joyce Carol Oates books. It seems like these are pretty polarizing. There are some people who are like, I love all of her books, and then some people that are like, I hate all of her books. I figure I'll try to read them, and if they're not my thing, I can give them away. But yeah, that is what I've got. I'll go through very quickly and show you all of the things that I ended up unhauling. So I'm going to go over my fiction shelves since those are the only ones that really changed. In terms of organization, this first section hasn't really changed a whole lot. I did add a couple of things, move a little bit around. I got the second volume of Snot Girl, so that goes here. I thought my soft boys needed a flower crown. But the rest is pretty much organized like it was earlier. Then we have this tall one, which is really where a lot of the change happened. The top is still the same. And then we have sci-fi still. We have what I've read first, and then what I want to read in priority order, with Star Trek having its little special space beside the dragon. We have horror-related books that I have read, plus Dracula's down here because they didn't have space, but then the rest are ones that I haven't read. Then we have romance, stuff I haven't read at the bottom, and then I just had to fit in 50 Shades up there. That's just how life went. Then we have the thrillers, which are pretty much like they were before, unread in order of importance, and then read right here, The Lamb Beside the Silence of the Lambs. We've got historical fiction in priority order. We've got general fiction that I haven't read in priority order, which continues to this shelf and on down, and then fiction that I have read, which goes down to the bottom shelf. I've got to figure out a good place for my Holden hat because I feel like this is a little awkward. But after that we get into young adult that I haven't read by priority, young adult that I have read. I got Felix Ever After. And then this bottom shelf, there's a little bit more space so I can actually have the unreads flat like that. And there's a little bit more space for some more kidlit. Then we go to the series shelves, and I've moved a lot of the stuff that I did have up here into boxes. We've got some knickknacks from various fandoms kind of up here, but there's also space. I can change this into having books on it later if I need to. I do still have a fair amount of, you know, different things related to this. I moved Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Nightlight over here just because it doesn't really make sense most places, but I guess that makes sense more than where it was before. I would have put this beside Twilight maybe, but there wasn't space. And then these bottom ones didn't actually change because I didn't take anything out of them. And then this didn't really change all that much, except I took a couple out. I still haven't really researched these, but that's like super low priority. So I ended up changing my religion, philosophy, psychology, whatever shelf this is a little bit. Decoration wise, it's still organized pretty much the same with like more like theological stuff that I'm interested in, and then kind of other books. We've got the Garfield cups now, separating those. And then on the bottom shelf I've actually added, this is my Game Boy from forever ago, and it's neat, so I figure I might as well put it somewhere, show it off, especially since I needed something to space these out anyways. I wanted to separate the kind of other books from the workbooks, and then we have my GRE books. And that is all for my bookshelf tour. Let me know if you saw any books that were your favorites, maybe if there was one that you saw that you think that I should prioritize reading. But other than that, that's about all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.